Welcome back. In the current iteration of our application, if we are inside of our exercise and we click on the back button, then the exercise will close. And this is maybe not something that the user wants. So this might be unintentional. And in order to give him the option to say, hey, this was unintentional, what we can do is we can add a little custom dialog that will then pop up, which allows the user to say, yes, I want to go back, or no, I want to keep on doing the exercise. So that's what we're going to implement now. Let's get started. Therefore, I have this little XML layout, and you can, of course, create your own layout for this, but I'm going to go over it real quick. So this is what I want to have. I have this little text on top, then another text, which is a description. Then I have a yes button and the no button. So the no button should not send us back to the main activity, and the yes button should send us back to the main activity, which means it should just finish the current activity. Okay, and that's what we want to achieve. So now that you have this dialog custom back confirmation XML file, you could try to implement this yourself. We have used custom dialogs before, but of course I will go a little more into depth in this video. So this could involve you having to research a little bit. All right, so as you see, this is what we want to achieve. Let me go into the code real quick. You see I'm just using a linear layout here with a little bit of padding, the gravity being centered, items being vertically aligned. Inside of it, we have a text view which says, are you sure? Then another text view with the description, this will stop your workout, and so forth. Then we have a linear layout for the two buttons that are next to each other, which is a horizontally oriented layout. And this is something you should try to avoid, to have linear layouts inside of linear layouts when it comes to having more complex applications. That's why Android has introduced, or Google has introduced, constraint layouts. But for such simple examples as we have here, this is still a fine approach, even though I would recommend that you try to basically build the same thing using a constraint layout if you feel like it. So now let's actually implement it. And where would be a good spot to implement it? Well, inside of our exercise activity. Okay, so here inside of the exercise, not the status adapter, but the actual exercise activity, that's where we want to implement this functionality. So instead of using the onBack pressed method here, when we are in the toolbar exercise and we click on the back button, what we want to do is we want to have our own method that will then display. So CustomDialog for back button is how I'm going to call this method. And now let's go ahead and create this method. Okay, so I'm going to create it here, which will make it a little simpler. And this will be a private fun custom dialog for background, or for back button. So first of all, we need to create a dialog. So CustomDialog is how I'm going to call it. And it will just be a dialog with this as the context. So we need to import dialog into our project here. You see that, into our file to be more precise. And then we can now set up this custom dialog. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to use data binding in order to prepare this dialog. So dialog binding, which will be dialog custom back confirmation binding. So this is a tricky part that we have not seen yet, and that is due to data binding. If you want to inflate an XML file and you want to use its items, such as the buttons, such as the, well, in our case, it's just going to be the two buttons. But if you had other UI elements that you want to access as well. So now we have the dialog binding ready, because the binding that we had so far, this binding object that we created up here, activity exercise binding, doesn't work because this XML file is not part of the XML file for our exercise activity. So it's a separate XML file, so we need to create an own binding for it. And you see that's the name of the XML file, and that's also the name of the binding. So here dialog custom back confirmation is the name of the XML file, and then we just have this binding keyword, and we inflate with the layout inflator, similarly to what we have done with the activity exercise binding. Okay, so now we just do it for the dialog here. And now we can use this dialog binding in order to access the items of it. And first of all, we need to give our custom dialog a content view to make sure how it's going to look like. So here we can use our dialog binding root for that. So we're just saying the custom dialog should now look like our XML file here. Okay. So we have used the custom dialogs before, and if you used find view by ID and everything like that, that's fine as well. Okay, so now we're setting the custom view, content view, and then we need to make sure that we have a cancel on touch outside to be false. So we want to make sure that the user cannot cancel this custom for Backbutton dialog. So let me get back into the application and show you how this is going to look like. So generally speaking, when I press the back button, you see I cannot cancel this dialog when I click outside of it. I only want to be able to cancel it when I click either no or yes. Okay, so that's why we need this set cancel on touch outside. And then we can go ahead and set the individual buttons. So dialog binding dot TV yes, so the text view yes, or actually I think it's a button. Let me check this here in the split. Yeah, and we call it TV yes, even though it should be called button yes, something like this. Button yes, and here also button no would be more descriptive because it's actually buttons, right? So now we can access them. So button yes. What should happen when we click on the button yes button? So we can have an on-click listener for that. And then what should happen when we click on the button no? And we have an on-click listener for that too. Okay. So either way, no matter what these buttons will do once we click on them, we need to display our custom dialog. So let's show the custom dialog by using the show method. So what should happen when we click on yes? Well, then we want to close the current activity. So here, as we are in the context of the dialog, we need to make sure that we are closing this exercise activity. So exercise activity dot finish. We cannot just call the finish method. And then we need to dismiss our custom dialog, because otherwise the dialog will still be active. Okay, dismiss it like so. And if the user clicks on no, we can just dismiss our custom dialog. So there we are. So now we just need to make sure that we have it all handled. Okay, custom dialog for back button. Now let's go ahead and test this, whether it's going to work for us or not. So there we are. Let's click on the back button. You see the screen pops up. We can click no, nothing will happen. We can click yes, and we will go back to our main screen. So on back pressed. So you can override whatever should happen when this on back pressed button is pressed. Okay, because I tried it and I was confused that it didn't work to just click on the back button and it wouldn't appear, or it wouldn't show up my custom dialog for back button at the beginning of the video. So now you know how you can get away around it. So you override what should happen when you click on the back button. In my case, I say, okay, I want the custom dialog for back button function to be called, which creates our custom dialog. And then I want to do whatever happens when you click on the back press button. So let's test this. And maybe I will have to get rid of this super. Okay, so let me click on back. Okay, let me comment this out and let's run it again. So we run it, we click on the back button, and you see now we see the dialog. We can say yes, then we go back, or we can say no and we don't go back. So I had to, and let me actually go back because having all of these sounds in the background is annoying. So here I have to actually get rid of the super on back press, because what that will do is it will close the current, or it will finish the current activity by default. At least that's the default functionality, and you can override that, as you see, by just writing your own code into this on back pressed function. So that's really the power of using override functions. They just give us the capability to really modify whatever we want. and even go deeper into how the default functionality is and override it with our own stuff. Okay, so that's it for this video. In the next one, we're going to prepare the BMI screen. So see you there.